All right, good evening, Corona Daze Professional Development Group. It's me, Danette Edwards, the founder of Corona Daze Professional Development Group. This evening, I'm here with Chris Mouzon, and he's going to talk to us about money mindset, why we struggle with money. A couple things he's going to go over. He's going to discover why you struggle to reach your financial goals. We're going to learn tonight the concepts and strategies you need to take your finances to the next level. Then he's going to have a financial Q&A where you can ask your specific money questions. So let me tell you a little about Chris. Chris hosts the Entrepreneurial Development Podcast and Property Players Podcast and is the co-host of the Perspective Podcast. That's a lot of podcasts now, Chris. He is a financial coach, a financial planner, a financial therapist, and the founder of United Agency. Partnering with his wife, United Agency was built with a mission based and focusing on people over profit. They teach people how to build wealth. United Agency provides free education on financial concepts to help people understand their relationship with money and make better money decisions in their day-to-day lives. Chris is married and in business with his wife and has a young daughter. His life priorities, faith, family, and business. I'm going to go ahead and turn this over to Chris immediately. Guys, we're going to have a dedicated Q&A. So drop your questions in the chat and we will tackle them in the dedicated Q&A. Thank you, Chris. If I left anything out, please add.
I think that was perfect, Annette. Thanks so much. I appreciate everyone that's joining us and ready to have this conversation about money. Trust me, I know it's one of those things that sometimes we don't always want to talk about, but it's important to have the conversation. So I appreciate the introduction. Again, guys, my name is Chris Mouzon. I am, yes, all of those things: financial therapist, financial coach, financial planner. I basically teach people about money. I didn't always do this, but over the past 7 or 8 years or so, I've fallen into this career path, this idea that if I can help enough people get to where they want to be, I'll get to where I want to be. So at the end of the day, that's what I come to do. I come to add a ton of value. Just like Danette said, at the end of the day, we're going to, at the end of this session, we're going to be able to have a Q&A. As you have questions, though, drop them into the chat. We'll keep a running tally. If I need to jump in and answer a question right away, I'll do it, but we'll save most of those questions to the end. The biggest thing for all of you to know is you're going to learn something about money tonight, okay? You're going to learn something about money. I don't do this for my health, right? I do this to add value for the people that I sit in front of and that I have a conversation with. So if there's anything that's going to happen tonight, you can know that you're going to learn something about your financial life, right? Specifically, title of what we're talking about is why we struggle with money. A lot of times people think that they're better off or better with money than they actually are. And we're going to identify some of those things tonight. We're going to talk a little bit more about just our mindset behind money, how we got to this place. And then I'm going to give you practical solutions, right? Practical things that you can start to do and learn how to do in order to take your finances to the next level. Because money is one of those things that whether you think about it or not, you're going to use it for the rest of your life, whether it's retirement, whether it's healthcare costs, whether it's just to feed yourself, right? Or pay for the roof over your head. It doesn't matter. You're going to use money for the rest of your life. So a mentor of mine a long time ago said, if you're going to use it for the rest of your life, it makes sense to get good at it, right? And so I took that and I started running with it. And now we're in this position to be able to teach and coach other people exactly what they need to do. So let's dive right in tonight, talk a little bit about this money mindset. So first, let's start off by talking about the problem, right? It's always the first step to recovery, right? The first step to making something better or to getting to the next level is understanding exactly where you sit. So let's talk about what the problem is. Many of you may have heard some of these phrases, but if you haven't, these are very prevalent phrases that are out there. Money is the root of all evil. Even though it's misquoted, that is a prevalent statement and a prevalent quote that maybe some of us grew up with. Maybe some of us still say it to this day. Money is the root of all evil. Another one, money doesn't grow on trees, right? How many times your parents tell you that growing up? How many times have you said that to your kids, right? Money doesn't grow on trees. Money can't buy happiness. all rich people are evil, all rich people scam, all rich people take advantage, whatever those sayings are. These are super common in our society. This is how we grow up. These are the things we hear. These are the things that get into our mind about money, right? Every thought that we have, our life is run off of our beliefs and our values. Our beliefs and our values. That's how we make all of the decisions in our life. If your belief system around money and your values around money are not congruent, it's going to be very tough for you to get to where you want to be with money. So these are just some of the areas that we have to start to identify and look at as the problem. What this leads to is poverty mindset, something we call stinking thinking, right? When you have these types of phrases that are in your mind that you're thinking about, it leads you to a place where you are in a form of a poverty mindset. You're constantly in survival mode. It's impossible to be in survival mode and thrive at the same time. But when it comes to our financial life, sometimes just in our mindset, subconsciously, this is where we sit. It's that poverty mindset. It leads to sayings like, I just want to be comfortable. How many times have you said that to yourself? Right? Or how many times have you heard that? I don't need much. I just want to be comfortable. Right? Or just saying, I don't want to be rich. I don't need to be rich. I don't need to make money. I don't want much. Money isn't everything. These sayings are very common. They're very common, but they're also the reason that sometimes we can't get to where we want to be financially, because what we're saying in our mind, what's happening in our subconscious is not going to allow us to get to where we say that we want to be. Right? So we have to pay attention to the problem. The problem is it's up here. It's our stinking thinking. Here's our mindset determines our success with money, guys. Our mindset determines our success with money. I think I may have this later on in the presentation, but there is a saying that Warren Buffett always says that if you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. If you can't control your emotions, you can't control your money. And we control our emotions through ourselves, right? Through our mindset, through our subconscious mind, through our EQ, right? That's how we control those things. If we can't control that, we can't control our money. There's something that pops up when we really do go down this path of determining or figuring out, where did our habits come from with money, right? Where do our money habits really come from? How are we really gaining these things? You don't come out of the womb knowing about money, right? You don't come out of the womb understanding how to balance a checkbook or how to, get a credit card. So you have to learn it at some point. But where do these habits in our mindset come from? Typically, it's going to come from our parents. How our parents think about money or thought about money is how we often adapt and learn how to think about money. That's our first, right? Many of you have probably heard the fact that that's like our primary relationship is our parents. So it's the person that teaches us how to love, right? Every son looks for his mother or, his mother in their wife or their spouse. And right, every daughter looks for their father, because that's our first understanding of a relationship. And that's like our bar. That's kind of where we develop those habits and mindsets around relationship. Same thing with our relationship with money. How you heard money referred to in the house, sayings like we just went over that you might have heard growing up, how your parents thought about money, going even deeper, who taught them to think about money? Did they learn from your grandparents or a family friend? Like, how is our money knowledge passed down? It's passed down through our families. So think about that, right? Whatever your parents do for a living or did for a living, however you grew up with money. I normally ask this to a lot of our clients when we sit down with them is, what's your first money recollection? Like, what's the first thoughts you have about money? And a lot of times that comes with trauma. Just like we have real relational trauma in our lives, many of us have money trauma that goes undetected and we don't really think about it or pay attention to it. But if you think back in your household, was money scarce or was it abundant? That's two distinct different types of thought processes, right? Scarcity mindset, abundance mindset. Those are completely different. How was it modeled to you? some of the differences in your house? Did it seem like there was never enough, or there's always a way that more can come from that? What was the conversation? Did you hear mom and dad yelling about money? Was that like the reason why there were a lot of arguments in the house? Because if so, you adapted that. You might not have thought about it that way, but that's what happens. So which way were you thinking about money, right? If you look on this chart towards the bottom of it, some of the three things at the bottom, one of them says the scarcity mindset is pessimistic about the future, that their tough times are up ahead. But the abundance mindset, they're optimistic about the future, that the best is yet to come. So think about that with money. Are you more pessimistic about it? Was your family more pessimistic about money? Or were they more optimistic? Do they know that money flows abundantly? That money is energy, that money comes and goes, right? That you can continue to produce money. There is not a shortage of money at all. It's not difficult to make money, right? Like, depends on what you were hearing growing up that determines your mindset about money right now. And success with money is determined by our mindset. So these are some things we have to start to pay attention to. Scarcity thinking talks about small thinking, but abundance thinking is big thinking. This is the stuff that really affects the habits we have when it comes to money. Sometimes people, and I know many of you, as I'm even diving in, I'm going hard, right? Like I told you guys, you're going to learn something today. This isn't just the typical budget. Make sure you save your money. Make sure you learn how to invest, right? That's very basic. We get it. It's actually, money is a very simple thing when you really think about it, right? Spend less than you make. That's the basic place to start. But why don't we do it? Why do we spend more than we make? Why do we get into credit card debt? Why did we make that purchase? Why can't we seem to save for the future? Why do we touch our savings? There's a why behind everything that we do. And if we want to get better in a certain area, we have to understand what the problem is. So again, it's typically coming in the way that we think about money. So the question is, are you willing to change it? If you want to get better with money, if you want to get to the next level financially, you got to be willing to change some things. Same old thinking produces the same old results. So what's the solution? We got to change our money mindset. You really want to get better with money? You got to change your money mindset. You got to change the way we think about money. You got to change the way we talk about money. You got to change the stories we tell ourselves about money. The things that we would use money for. The sayings that we just say that are just very cavalier, like, I can't afford that. Those are things that if you really break it down and kind of get into it, it's the thing that actually is taking your subconscious mind away from manifesting what you need. If you say, I can't afford something, I think I'm gonna talk about this soon. Robert Kiyosaki, he's the author of a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad. He has a saying in that book where he says, a question opens the mind, a statement closes the mind. A question opens the mind, a statement closes the mind. So that means if you constantly say statements, your mind closes. If you go see that thing, you really don't have the money for it, and you say, I can't afford that, your mind closes. Your mind doesn't have to go to work figuring anything out because you've told it the command, I can't afford that. For those of you that are parents, when you say that to your child, we can't afford that, you're starting a money mindset in them of scarcity, of saying statements, of saying that they don't have something. The other side of it is if you ask yourself the question, how can I afford that? How can I get that? It opens your mind. It takes you to a place where now your mind can go to work finding the answer for you. I can't afford that. How can I afford that? Sounds very simple. These are the traps we fall into on a day-to-day basis with our money mindset and how we talk about money. These are all the things we have to be willing to change. We have to be able to address how we talk about money so that we can actually change what's happening with our money, if that makes sense. Hopefully that does make sense. Let's keep going. A couple things to note. I'm a man of faith, right? So I get a lot of my wisdom from scripture. It says in Proverbs, death and life are in the power of the tongue, and those who love it will eat its fruit. Death and life are in the power of the tongue. Be careful with your words. What I just explained to you about a statement closes the mind, a question opens the mind, just as I explained that, that's what we're talking about. Everything that you have, life and death, that power of everything that's in front of you comes out of your mouth. So be very careful with how we use our words. I'll give you a great example. Like I said, I've been in this financial services industry, helping people understand money for a long time. 8 years, right? Maybe not super long, but 8 years, right? Long enough. I am privy to be able to lift up the hood under most Americans' financial life. Difference between me and other people that are out there, I don't necessarily go after the wealthy, the top 10% of Americans. They have people that help them. They have companies, they have all types of, right, investment bankers, they're fine. But what about the rest of us, right? You, just middle America, just regular people, who actually helps us understand these things? That's where me and my wife step in. That's what we do for a living, right? And one of the things that I hear all the time, right, is when I sit down with someone and I say, where do you want to be? I ask that question, what's the ultimate vision or desire that you want with money, right? 95% of people, no exaggeration, 95% of people that I sit down with say some form of, I just want to be comfortable. Some form of that, whether it's, I just want to be financially free. I just want to not worry about money. I just don't want money to be an issue. I want to be able to do what I want to do. It's some form of, I want to be comfortable. I don't want to stress about money. I don't want to think about money. The problem is, back to these words, that the more that we say things that are about comfort, the more our brain goes to work trying to find comfort, which actually is the opposite of what we need to build wealth. Because, and I'm coming back next week to talk entrepreneurship, where we'll talk more about this stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to learn how to get comfortable being uncomfortable if you want to make changes. If you want to make significant changes in your financial life, in your business life, in anything, you have to get comfortable being uncomfortable, being in different rooms that make you uncomfortable, doing things that make you uncomfortable. But in our money mindset, if the number one thing we're trying to get to is comfort, and that's what we're saying to ourselves over and over again, we actually won't get there, right? We won't get to that place, because what's needed is to be uncomfortable in order to get there. Comfort zone is where dreams go to die. Comfort is a drug. Comfort, the thing that we actually are trying to seek, is the thing we shouldn't be seeking. We should be seeking to be uncomfortable. Tony Robbins says the quality of your life comes down to the amount of uncertainty you can handle at any given time. The quality of your life comes down to the amount of uncertainty you can handle. When it comes to our money, we want to be super certain. We want to be very sure that I have this amount and I'm good. But we actually have to do the opposite in order to get there. So I know this is going a little deep for you guys, but I'm telling you, this is the stuff that will set you free if you really adapt to it and understand. Because the biggest thing is, where there's no vision, people cast off restraint. Some people know this scripture as, where there's no vision, the people perish. But I like this side a little bit better, because this gives you more of an understanding of why it's a struggle for people to do certain things in their financial life. If you have no vision for where you want to be, you cast off restraint. So ultimately, you have to have a vision for your financial life. Saying 10 years from now, 20 years from now, 15 years from now, you just want to be comfortable is not a clear enough vision to get you to change your short-term habits to get there. Okay, hopefully you guys are following me. This is important. If you're not clear on where you're headed, where there's no vision, the people perish. Where there's no vision, the people cast off restraint. The reason why it might be hard for some people to save money, the reason why it's hard to limit yourself on that spending, the reason why it's hard to limit yourself on dining out, the reason why you know you should be doing better, but you can't, sometimes comes down to that place of you don't know exactly where you want to be. You haven't clearly defined how much income it takes to live that life, what that life looks like for you, how much you need in savings, what the quality of life is for you. You don't have a vision. So it's easy to cast off restraints when it comes to your money. It's easy. It's easy to overspend in the holidays. It's easy because there's nothing pulling you to where you need to be. Ultimately, you need a vision for your life and you need a vision for your money. It all starts though with a proper financial education. Once you understand the mindset, once you understand the problems, once you understand exactly where you sit and what's happening, you got to get educated. You got to take your level of financial knowledge from a 2 or a 6 to a 10, right? You got to get educated on this stuff, because let's really talk about it. Where do we learn our money? Where do we learn? Who gives us a financial education? For sure, you're not getting it in school. Like I said, you might get it from parents, but who's really teaching you how to be wealthy, how to be successful, how to be financially independent? That goal of comfortable, that goal of retirement, like who's teaching you, helping you get there? Grant Cardone says, if you're having financial trouble, it's because you have the wrong information. It's most likely true. Normally, you're having financial trouble because you have a thought, a mindset, some information that was given to you at some point that is just wrong, right? The reason a lot of people struggle with money is because everyone seems like they're an expert, right? Friends, family, everyone has a hot tip for you, right? All of those things are what lead into our mindset. But where do we learn it? Like I said, peers, coworkers, TV, internet, social media. This is where people are getting their financial information. But all you're getting is a bunch of uninformed, misinformed people. And some people are actually informed, but how do you sift them out? How do you sift out the people that are informed versus the people that are misinformed, or the people that are uninformed? How do you sift them out? It's tough, but it starts with working with a financial professional and or getting proper financial guidance where you can unlearn and relearn some things. This quote down here that says, the literate of the 21st century will not be those who can't read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn new information. It's so important, guys. If you want to get better with your money, I guarantee you, there are things that you've learned about money, mindset, sayings, anything, vehicles to put your money in. There's things you've learned from uninformed or misinformed people. So if you want to get better, you're going to have to unlearn some of those things and relearn something new. It's the only way to get better. Unlearning and relearning. It's a very tough task, but again, this is the work of getting you to where you want to be. It starts in the mind, starts with a proper financial education. How do we get a financial education? Money books. These are 3 money books. Practical things. If you want to start reading, by the way, leaders or readers, people that are very, very successful. We'll talk about this next week when I'm talking entrepreneurship. People that are highly successful as entrepreneurs are constant learners, not from a schooling standpoint, from an education standpoint. Those are 2 different things, right? Never let schooling get in the way of your education. Education is completely different than what you do at school. But the most successful people with money, with business, all those things, they're lifelong learners. They're constantly reading, learning, taking in information, having that childlike curiosity, asking a lot of questions. They're okay to go back to being a novice in an area and just learning. That's something that you got to get and adapt if you want to get better. These are 3 books. One on the left, it says Money Master the Game by Tony Robbins. It's a huge book. It's like 700 pages. But basically what he did is he went and interviewed 50 of the wealthiest people that he knows that are in the world. And he said, listen, if you could not pass down any of your money, what information would you give that next generation in order to build it up the way you did? And so there's all the secrets in there of people that actually have built wealth and what they talk about you should be doing or how you should be thinking about it. Tony Robbins says, success leaves clues. If you want to be successful with money, it makes sense to follow the clues, the people that have built wealth. Middle book is The Richest Man in Babylon. Just a great book for people that want to get to a place of wealth creation. This is talking about mindset. And then lastly, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, which I talked a bit about for you. Rich Dad, Poor Dad is the story. Robert Kiyosaki talks about his rich dad and his poor dad. His poor dad was the one that was his actual birth father. He was the head of education in Hawaii, but he was always poor. And then he had his best friend's dad, who was an entrepreneur, and his best friend's dad obviously, built wealth, built the land on in Hawaii or something along those lines. But anyway, the book breaks down to you the differences, the mindset around some things about money. So I highly recommend those 3 books if you're going to dive in and go a little bit deeper into your money education. And the other side is us, right? Me and my wife. This is what we do. We teach you money, right? So you can follow us on social. You can reach out to us. We do a bunch of different stuff in the money world. But at the end of the day, we take an educational approach. We're not here to sell you a product or do anything along those lines. We're just here to make sure that at the end of the day, people get the information that they need, because it's out there, but you just got to have a trusted source that is able to give it to you. So that's us. Now let's dive into some things to learn about money today. I'm gonna give you a couple things that I know are things that are on your mind or have been on your mind. I don't know where each of you sit financially, but again, I have a good pulse because I talk to many people in middle America, middle income families that make anywhere between $30,000 a year to $250,000 a year and everything in between. So I'll tell you, I know that these are the things that most people need help with or are struggling with a bit. But let's dive into a concept. This is note-taking time. Something called the Rule of 72. I don't know how many of you have heard of the Rule of 72, but it's something to know. I teach this to kids because this is what they should be teaching kids in school. This is what you should be teaching your children if you have any, right? It's compound interest. It's understanding how interest works, okay? This is not something that we get taught, but interest is the number one thing that if you can learn to avoid it, like not pay it, but you're able to gain it, you will be wealthy. But if we don't understand exactly what interest is or how it works, we always fall into the same traps, okay? So Rule of 72 says, 72, and this was created by Albert Einstein. It says 72 is that magical number that if you divide the interest rate you make into the number 72, it tells you how long it's going to take for your money to double. Okay. So how does this work? Let's say you get 1%. You go to the bank gives you a CD. It's worth 1%, right? Gives you 1% interest annually. Bank probably won't give you that, but it is what it is. Let's say it did. Okay. Well, 1 divided into 72 gives you 72. So that means every 72 years, your money would double. That's at 1%. So if you're 29 years old, this is just an example. If you're 29 years old and you put $10,000 away, it would take you to age 101 before you made it to $20,000 at 1% interest. I know somebody out there is like, sign me up for that one. That's the plan I want. Not at all. Here's a funnier question for you though, right? Do you know actually what the average savings interest is, like at a Wells Fargo or a Chase or something like that? If you do, type in the comments. But if not, I'll tell you, it's like less than 0.5%. I think Wells Fargo is like 0.003%, something like that, right? So they're giving you less than 0.5% on your basic savings account at the bank. If you got 1%, it would take you 72 years for that money to double. So again, just understand there's no way to grow money at the bank. Hopefully we understand that, but if not, this is the lesson that you should take from this. The bank is not there for us to make money. They're not there to advise us on how to make money. They're there to store our money and make money off of our money. That's what a bank's role is, okay? So we have to understand those things before we just go putting money into these banks and things like that. But let's look at what 4 years looks like. Matter of fact, or 4%. Let's look at what 6% looks like. By the way, I see a couple questions coming in. Like I said, I'm going to jump in at the end just so we can get through this information. And then I'm going to come back and we're going to just rapid fire go into these questions because I see some good questions in there. So again, let's look at what 6% looks like. By the way, the average stock market return, if you kept your money in the stock market over the long haul, 20, 30 years, you'll get back about 4 to 7%. You can Google that number. That's what every economist, every wealth advisor, everybody will tell you. If you just keep your money sitting in the US stock market over the long haul, you don't touch it, take it out, pull it in, you're going to get back somewhere between 4 and 7% over that time. So let's look at if you got 6% interest. 6 divided by 72 is going to give you 12. So every 12 years, your money would double at 6%. So if you're 29, you put $10,000 in a savings account, you're getting 6% interest. Boom, 12 years later, it doubles to 20,000. Boom, then 12 years later, it's at 40,000. Then at 65, you're at $80,000, right? Good job, you made it. But at 65, most people are trying to retire. And $80,000 does not look like a good retirement or a comfortable retirement for anyone. So there's, even at 6%, not necessarily going to get you exactly to where you want to be. It's better than 1% though, but it still might not be exactly where you need it. But what if you got 12%? In your savings, if you got, or in your investment account, if you got 12%, and again, this is just an example to explain to you how compound interest works, right? At the end of the day, if you got 12%, that means your money would be doubling every 6 years. Every 6 years, your money would double. I'm going to give you guys 30 seconds because I know I have some math geniuses out there. I'll give you 30 seconds. If you started with $10,000 at age 29, how much would you have at age 65 if you were getting 12%? So there's the numbers for you. You got 12% interest, so that means your money doubles every 6 years. Same example, you start at age 29 with $10,000. By the time you get to 65, how much money should you have? I'll give you 30 seconds. Type something in the chat. Put your answer down. See how close you can get. 12% interest means it doubles every 6 years. You start at $10,000 at age 29, just like all the other examples. The money doubles, 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 doubles. Gets to age 65. How much do you have? I'm sure someone is saying 160,000. That could be an answer. Somebody else probably saying 240,000. That could be an answer. There might be somebody else out there saying 500,000. I don't know what you guys are thinking. But either way, same example. Here's the answer. $640,000. Think about that. You went from $10,000 at 29 to $640,000 at 65. That's a difference of $560,000. This is only a difference of 6%. It's only a difference of 6%, guys. $640,000 would be the difference if you had your money in a 6% interest account versus a 12% interest account. That is how slim it is for you to get to real wealth numbers, okay? So this is how we teach interest, compound interest. The reason why this continues to compound is because your money is generating money on top of itself. If you want to build wealth, one day, Warren Buffett also said this, you need to find a way to make money while you're sleeping. You need to make money or figure out a way to make money while you're sleeping, okay? So this is why you need to understand this. I'm gonna give you practical reasons why you need to understand compound interest. 2 reasons. If it works in your favor, amazing. When it works against you, you'll be in debt for the rest of your life. It's the way it works. Here's why. Because if you get 12% interest in your account, that's awesome. That's great. You're making money. But the other side, you got a mortgage, you got a car loan, you got a student loan. Worst off, you got a credit card. The average credit card is a 20% interest. The average credit card is 20% interest. So think about that from the credit card company standpoint. If you take rule of 72 and it's at 20%, that's like every 3.5 years or so, the money is doubling for the credit card company. This is why we all know people that have a credit card balance that pay the minimum that never get out of debt, and it never looks like the balance goes down. It's because their interest is so high that minimum payment doesn't reflect the interest. So if you get suckered in and just pay the interest, you might not even be paying the interest on it. That's why it never goes down. That's why we stay in debt. So it's understanding these types of concepts that are going to help us, right? I show this. These are real live examples. This is a bank that says, hey, you put your money in this 12-month CD, we'll give you 1.25%. 1.25%. If you're not educated on interest, that might be like something that you may consider if someone one day, your grandparents, your aunt, uncle told you about putting money in a CD. Because by the way, 30 years ago in a CD, you could get like 15% interest. This is why our parents and uncles and people around us put money into CDs and tell us to do so. But this is what is happening in 2020, 2021. We're getting 1.25%. So imagine what this is saying in layman's terms, right? Don't worry about that sign. What this is saying is, bank says, you give us your money for 12 months. We're going to hold on to your money for a year. There's some small print there that maybe you might not be able to see. It says it's a minimum $10,000 balance. So literally this bank is saying, you have to give us $10,000. We will hold that $10,000 for you for a full year, for a full 12 months. And what are you going to get back afterwards? If you used your decimals, right? Move the decimal over 2 times. That means from your $10,000 you gave them, they're going to give you back $125. So think about that. Think if they weren't the bank. If this was your friend, says, hey, listen, I need to borrow 10 grand for a year, and I'll give you back 10 grand and $125 in interest. How's that sound? You would say, absolutely not. I could do way more with that 10 grand right now than get back $125 after 12 months. But this is what the banks do, because they capitalize on our ignorance on financial literacy, on interest, on things like that. So it makes it sound like they're offering us something that would be good. Here's a 2-year CD. Imagine someone keeping your money for 24 months and giving you back 2%. Just because people haven't been educated of what they should be doing with their money. Here's the other side of it. You get that credit card, like I told you, this is what comes in the mail. You see that credit card, you turn it on the back after they give you like, oh, you'll be pre-approved. Then you turn it on the back and this is what it says. It says 0% APR for the first 15 billing cycles. After that, 15.99 to 24.74%. We just looked at rule of 72. We just looked at what 12% looks like. That means every 6 years your money doubles. This credit card company is about to charge you upwards of 24%, double that, to borrow some money. Same thing over here, 22.9%. This is what we need to teach and learn for ourselves so that we never get into this situation ever. Imagine and think of how messed up our financial system is, where if you go save money, they give you 1.25%, but when you go to borrow money from the same institution, they try to charge you 20% interest on your money. It's backwards, but that's why we got to learn this so we can get above the system, so we can get above where the bankers and people are trying to put our money. But this is why we have to get smart, okay? Let's talk about debt, because I just showed you how interest works on savings and on credit cards. But let's talk about debt, because most people are sitting in some form of debt, whether it's student loans, credit cards, it's something, right? But did you know that there's good debt and bad debt, right? Hopefully you do. Hopefully we don't buy into the Dave Ramsey, all debt is bad debt, right? It's not true. All debt is not bad debt. How people build wealth, and again, depends on your level of where you want to be financially. Go back to what I said about that vision. If your vision is financial independence, if your vision is assets and owning multiple assets that cash flow you, most likely you will need to have debt. So there is a such thing as good debt and bad debt. Here's how it breaks down. Bad debt, everything on this side, payday loans, credit card debt, store cards, car loans, what we call consumer debt is bad debt. If you have a credit card, they're charging you 17% interest. Payday loans are like 120% interest. Please, if any of you are listening to me, there are so many other choices. You cannot get to it would not be smart to have a payday loan. You never pay those things off, right? Furniture loans, car loans, all these loans that you are paying interest to another person is bad debt. It's bad debt. There's some things that can be good or bad. And this is where you have debates. And what I always say is, and this is something to take even as I'm about to go into some of these financial questions that you guys have, there's no one financial vehicle that's good for everyone. There's no one, everyone's financial life is completely different. So anyone that tries to give you blanket financial advice is not taking into account your situation specifically. If you notice, I'm teaching you concepts to help you. I don't know each one of you that are listening and specifically what your issue is, where you sit in your financial life. So it would be wrong of me to say, put all your money in this place or that place, because I don't know you. but there are concepts that you can learn, then apply that to your financial life and to your vision to get you to where you want to be. So in these middle areas, some good debt, some bad debt, there's two popular ones that are in there that some people could say they're good debt, some people could say they're bad debt. One is a home mortgage loan or a home equity loan, those two, and then student loans. They can be good or bad, guys. Like, we just have to, the proof is in the pudding. We got to look at the numbers. Purchasing a home for yourself, and I'm not going to go too deep into this one, but purchasing a home for yourself is more of a liability than it is an asset. So taking out that money is going to be, could potentially be a bad form of debt. Here's the best way to classify good debt and bad debt. Bad debt takes money out of your pocket. Good debt eventually puts money in your pocket. That's why that home mortgage kind of falls into, it could be, for most Americans, it doesn't happen that way. Student loans, we're seeing the other side of that, right? Like, there's $1.4 trillion in student loan debt, and it didn't really help us go make more money to pay off the debt, and we still have it. So there's a debate out there. But in general, good debt, real estate loan for a rental property, business loans for business projects. Why? Because those types of debt put money into your pocket. I'll give you a great real estate example. If you wanted to buy a massive apartment building, costs $1 million. You obviously don't have $1 million. Well, maybe you do. I don't know. Maybe you have $1 million. If you let's say you didn't have $1 million and you wanted to buy that apartment building because it's going to cash flow you money. It's going to literally, after you've rented it out, every month you're going to get a check for $2,000. But in order to get that $1 million property, you have to take out $800,000 in debt. But it pays you $2,000 a month. Is that good debt or bad debt? It's good debt because it's paying you. It's increasing your cash flow. You have more money to work with. Yes, you had to take out debt, but it was for a good reason because it put more money into your pocket. This is the way we have to start to think of our debt. All the credit cards, all that stuff, bad debt, not something to pay attention to. But don't get into the mindset of all debt's bad debt, because that's not true. If we are smart about it and we understand how to use it, you can have good debts. But here's the question everyone always asks me. So should I save first or should I pay off debts? Right? I get this question every time I sit down with people. Should I save first? Should I pay off my debt first? Here's an answer. I'll give it to you in an example form. Here's an example of Mr. Save Early and Mr. Wait Longer. And after this, I'm wrapping up, okay? Mr. Save Early, Mr. Wait Longer. This is how this plays out. Mr. Start Early, Save Early, saves $3,600 a year. It's $300 a month. It's not a lot. $3,600 a year for 7 years in an 8% interest account. Okay? So he's putting away $3,600 every year for 7 years, getting 8% interest. That's this guy on this side. After those 7 years, he stops putting money in. He's like, I'm not going to contribute anymore. I just am going to put it in this account. I did it for 7 years. I'm going to let the interest take over and just roll. Then you have Mr. Wait Longer. Mr. Wait Longer said, hypothetically, I'm going to pay off my debts for these first 7 years. I'm not even going to worry about saving money. I'm just going to go directly at my debt. I'm going to pay off these student loans, get out of the credit card debt, right? That's what I'm going to do for the first 7 years. And I'm not going to put away any money for long term. So what happens with Mr. Wait Longer? He starts saving his same $3,600 or $300 a month, but he waits till 7 years and he does it for 17 years. So Mr. Start Early only paid money and put money into this account for 7 years. Mr. Wait Longer started 7 years later, but put it away for 17 years. Same amount, same 8% account. That's the scenario. Save early, wait longer. This is how the numbers play out. When they both get to age 48, Mr. Start Early has $128,000. That's with the growth of his 8%. He stopped putting money in after 7 years. Mr. Wait Longer has $131,000. He put it away for 10 years more than Mr. Start Early and waited 7 years longer also. That's a difference of like 3 grand. Here's the big number. This guy contributed 25 grand. This guy contributed 61,000. They basically came out to the exact same number. But that's 40 extra $1,000 almost out of your pocket because he chose to wait longer. If we understand this concept of compound interest, that the earlier you start saving for yourself, the better you're going to be in the future, versus the mindset which is permeating our society of, let me just get out of debt. Let me just get out of debt. We're actually shooting ourselves in the foot to say, we may not have enough time to continue to grow money the way that we want to if we wait longer. Procrastination is one of the main causes of failure. Procrastinating on our savings. The reason each of you works hard or wants to work hard or wants to start a business or whatever you want to do, the reason you're doing it is for you. It's not for the credit card company. It's not for the bank, for the mortgage. It's not for any of the debts that you've incurred. That's not why you do it. Yes, we have a responsibility to our debts, but you have a responsibility to yourself as well. So you have to say, and this is where, again, no blanket financial advice. If you have 6 credit cards and all of them are 30% interest, we're probably going to want to pay attention to that side a little bit more rapidly than the other side. But in this example, we're not going to do this year after year after year after year, putting our savings aside and just focusing on the debt, because you will put yourself in a worse financial position down the line. So you can see here, it's small changes, but it can create big money if you actually start to make the right decision. So to answer that question, should you pay off debt? Should you save? I'm going to say there's going to be a blend of those two depending on your situation, but savings will always be above your debt. There will be a balance in where you pay and what you put money to, but saving money for yourself, investing it specifically, getting compound interest will always be above your debt. Okay? So what do I do? What do I actually do? This is what I do. This is where I'll leave you. What I actually do is I do a financial needs analysis for everybody that I sit down with. We attack these 6 areas because we know these are the 6 areas that people actually need to fix in their financial life. My wife always says, small holes sink great ships. Small holes sink great ships. It's never the big thing. It's never the mortgage. It's never the phone bill. It's never the big stuff. It's the small holes. And we have identified these 6 areas that if we can put these in place, or you can put them in place for yourself, plug up those holes, you can start to build on your financial life and get to financial independence. But you got to have all 6 of these things because this is the foundation for you being able to build. What I found is most people don't have all 6 of these in place. Number 1 thing is cash flow. It's how much is coming in, how much is going out. Like I said, it's a very simple mindset. You should spend less than you make, but our society tells us the opposite. Our society tells us, well, as you get the new job, you deserve the car. As you get the raise, you should get the house. As you work longer, you should take more vacations. So what ends up happening is our expenses rise with our income. That is a losing formula, but that's why 78% of Americans live paycheck to paycheck. I sit down with people, again, make $250,000, they still live paycheck to paycheck as well. If they miss 2 months worth of their paycheck, they're bankrupt. Same thing with people that make $40,000 a year that are struggling also, living paycheck to paycheck. It's all the same things. So we attack cash flow. Second thing is emergency fund. Every financial person will tell you you need 3 to 6 months worth of your income socked away, labeled emergency, that you never touch. That's not your fund to buy your house. That's not your vacation fund. That's not anything that you are actually going to use. That is a separate emergency fund, 6 months worth of your income set aside that you don't have to worry about. Have you gotten to that place? If not, we need to plug up that hole. Well, somebody out there saying, Chris, I can't save because I don't make enough money. Well, then we got to teach you how to pay yourself first. Because like I said, at the end of the day, you're working hard for you. I don't care if you save $5 every single month, you got to save something, because saving is a habit. Where do we pick up our money habits? If we've never built them, they're probably bad. So we got to pick up better money habits. So that's what we talk about. Third thing is that debt piece. Help people plan on how to get out of debt. Fourth thing is proper protection. We put that word proper in front of it because We talk life insurance, disability, long-term care, living benefit. What happens if you have a chronic or critical illness and income stops coming in? Are we depending on the government, or is there a policy in place to take care of our family? God forbid, if we passed away, we all know we don't want to do the GoFundMe collection plate, that type of thing, right? So we got to make sure that we have protection on that side properly for our family. Fifth thing is building wealth. That's long-term. It's what I just really started talking to you guys about, interest-bearing accounts. Do you understand your 401k? Do you understand your IRA? Do you understand what it means to be tax deferred? We have to go down these paths so we can shore up and make sure you're even in the right vehicle to get you to where you want to be. And lastly, it's preserving the wealth. How do we pass it down? We have very well-meaning people in our lives, but they may not know that things don't just pass down to the next of kin. It goes through probate. Probate is the government. So if your grandma passes away and didn't have a trust or anything set up or willed so that they know where this stuff goes, it's going to go to the government. Bank accounts get seized, right? All types of accounts, home deeds, all that stuff goes to the government. Then your family has to buy it back from them. When your family buys it back from them, that's how they get it back in that possession. But at the end of the day, that comes with attorney fees, it comes with taxes, it comes with all types of things. This is what causes our generations to take a step forward and a step backwards all the time, because most likely the kids or the generations that came after don't have the money to keep up with those things. It wasn't all tied together. So then we just kind of start back at zero. This is your financial foundation. If I just went through that and you're like, I'm good on all those areas, we can start building. You can start talking assets and liabilities. You can start talking, how are we getting to that next level? If you don't have some of these things, we got to get those in place first before you can think about building. Think of it like building a house. At the beginning, you got to have a strong foundation, what it's built on. Because if not, when the waves come, when the wind comes, when something comes, it'll blow your house down. That's what we have in our economic life. We're in a very turbulent time right now when it comes to money. If you don't have a strong foundation, whatever you feel like you're building on top of it, it's all going to come down. We got to get this foundation in place. Then you know you're good. If your short-term savings is good, your long-term savings is good, you're out of debt, you're properly protected in case something unexplained happens, you're able to pass it down properly, your cash flow looks good every month, you have more money coming in than going out, you're in the best place financially to get to the next level. That's what we come in and do. Okay, so I appreciate you guys' attention. Again, if you have any specific questions, you can reach out to me, but I'm going to go over some of this stuff right now because I see a few questions in the chat. And
all right, Chris, so I'll read the questions to you.
Perfect.
Let me see if I can get to the first one. Okay, so Mary says, what if you and your spouse, first of all, thank you, Chris. I'm sorry, I'm just being rude.
That's all good. It's all good. I appreciate it.
What if you and your spouse are opposite in this thinking? If you have money trauma from when you were young and fear of not having money, fear of not having money, and now I can't scroll. Let me scroll. Come on. Okay, fear of not having money conflicts with the one who feels money just flows. So did you understand that, or should I reread it?
I understand it perfectly.
Okay.
Again, it's actually what happens, and I appreciate whoever said that question. It actually happens in most relationships, right? Husband has one spending mindset or one money mindset, and wife has another one. It's just the way it goes. Somebody's a spender, somebody's a saver. Somebody has trauma, somebody doesn't. Just like regular traumas, just like regular things that we deal with, it's communication, right? You're not going to force your spouse or your partner that grew up a completely different way with money, that has a completely different mindset, to see it your way, until you guys talk about those things, until you talk about the traumas, until you talk about what you feel. And then, just like every relationship, there has to be a level of compromise. There has to be a level of compromise, whether that is who manages the money, right? That might be a compromise. Whether it's having, and here's really where it comes down to, having a shared vision for what's up ahead. That is the biggest thing in your relationship to get you and your spouse or your significant other on the same page. Is, do you see 10 years from now in the same way? If you can agree on that, if you can say, hey, 10 years from now, I want this, I want that. Yeah, we both want those things. It will then determine your spending and saving behavior immediately. right? If couples don't have a shared vision for where they want to be, it makes it real tough to do the day-to-day things because you're just living for today, right? Like you're just doing what you want to do. So have a vision, but have a lot of communication. All this stuff comes down to communication, but you got to get a vision in place too.
So let me just piggyback off of that, because you and your wife work together in this. Were you always on the same page from dating, or did who was more finance focused? Was it you or was it her who bought the other one?
So we've been through, right, a bunch. Like, so me and my wife been together for 13 years. We were married for 9, right? So like we've changed a bunch in our money mindset since, growing up and kind of being together. My wife has always been a go-getter, always in business, always aware of money and making money. Neither one of us had good money habits coming in though. Right? Neither one of us had good money habits. We spent money just in different areas, but we just didn't have good money habits. What's happened over time since being in business together with each other is when you teach this stuff, right, you have to apply it. So we've had to have a lot of those conversations and get on the same page. And most importantly, that's why I said it, a shared vision. The best part about being in business together is because our visions align in everything we do. We know what we want for our family, what we want out of our business, what type of lifestyle. We already are clear on those things. So in the short term, we can fix our money. The way it works is I normally pay attention to the money. I do the spreadsheet. Again, something that I always tell people, you have to inspect what you expect. So if you expect to have money, you need to inspect your money all the time. You have to see what's happening in your bank accounts. You have to see what's happening in your investment accounts. I normally do that for our family. But we have a spreadsheet that my wife taps into. She understands where we sit. So if you asked her, hey, where do we sit? She could tell you where our investments are and all that stuff. But I pay attention to it, and that's how we roll. So but we are not always on the same page. Trust me.
Well, that gives us hope, right, guys? Thank you for that question, Mary, and thank you for that answer, Chris. All right, so these are questions from Facebook. You are a man of faith. How about faith and money? I grew up believing that God would provide, the Our Father prayer. I wasn't taught that I needed to save or plan my money. How does the way you look at money align with your faith? Any advice for those of, that's it. Yeah. That's it.
Great. And again, great question. I wound up doing a podcast with a lady. I kind of forget the name of the podcast, but it was on like God and money. And this really gets down to a place of, right, when you get into spirituality and like people's religion, like that comes into deep beliefs. Remember what I said earlier about like our belief system, right? If your money belief is tied into your spiritual beliefs, it becomes tough, because sometimes, like I said, you could be misinformed or uninformed from a religious standpoint that kind of puts thoughts into our head about money. The script, and again, being a man of faith, I go back to the scripture for everything, right? So God came to give us life and life more abundantly, right? We are called to have an abundant life. Yes. That's what we're called to have. So people like, when you tie in your money, and, people always say that saying, right? Money is the root of all evil. It's not, it's the love of money. The love of money is the root of all evil. And that's because, right? And again, not telling anyone how to believe, but as a man of faith, right? Believe in Jesus Christ. Jesus wants to be on our heart, on the throne of our heart. If you put money on the throne of your heart, then you're out of balance, right? And so all he's saying is, don't make that the thing. It actually says in the scripture, seek ye first the kingdom of heaven, and all these things will be added unto you. It's your instruction that if you seek God first, he'll give you the riches, the abundance, the wealth, because that's what he wants of you. Right? So sometimes we have to unlearn and relearn some new things and really dive into the scripture to say, what does God want from me, of me, when it comes to money? At the end of the day, faith without works is dead. So whoever asked that question that says she wasn't taught, or he wasn't taught how to save money because God will provide, well, that directly goes against something we believe in scripture of faith without works is dead. You can have all the faith in the world. If you don't put works in, it's nothing going to happen. Right? So hopefully that answered that question for her.
Thank you, Chris. Any advice for those of us with heavy student loan debt? I guess that's just general advice.
Again, right, tough because don't know your specific situation, but at the end of the day, just know most Americans are dealing with a form of student loan debt, right? Most Americans are. If it's putting you in a position to not save money, I think you know my answer on this one. You got to start saving money. Put that thing on the back burner. Call, do an IBR, an income-based repayment plan, right? Try to get it to zero. Call these companies and see like, hey, can I do some more forbearance? Can I push it off a little bit more? But then it's going to come down to also you probably need to start making some more money if that is a debt you have to take care of, right? And again, I sit down with people that have $10,000 in student loan debt. I sat down with a guy that has $140,000 in student loan debt. At the end of the day, it's really up to kind of your financial picture, where you sit, but treat that debt like any other debt. And it's one of the lowest interest debts that you have. That's why I don't recommend ever like consolidating that or like refining that debt. Basically, that's kind of what consolidating is, because you're going to get a higher interest rate. And the best part about student loans is they're very low. They're 7% or lower. So you move that to a credit card or some type of loan, you're going to get to 10, 12, 15%. That's not the smartest thing. So if anything, just let it sit, pay it as you can, pay $5 here and there. Don't pay it, save money. Student loans is one of those things, like as a country, we're going to need to figure out, and I don't have like the right answer specifically for you. So
thank you, Chris. So this is from Felicia. She says, what are your recommendations for college funds?
good. So you don't have many options, Felicia, just so you know, right? Like the only real college fund that's out there is a 529 plan. And you can research a 529 plan. What I take this to for parents that ask me that question is, how much do you want to save for your child? Let's start backwards, right? Instead of finding the vehicle, because none of them are going to do what you really need them to do. The question becomes, how much are you trying to get to for your college savings for your child? Some people ask me that question when their child is 12 and they're leaving in 6 years. Well, how much can you comfortably save every year for your child in 6 years? That's up to you. If you get to that number, then of course we can start to talk about, okay, what vehicles are going to be best to grow some of it. But in general, you just got to come up with that number. Like, okay, how much am I trying to get to for my child? And again, no judgment. Everyone's their own parent. Some people say, I just want 20,000 per kid, or 20,000 for my kid. Some people say, I want to give a full USC ride, which is, $250,000, right? So like, it just depends what you want to do, what's going to make you feel good as a parent that you were able to do for your child. And then just like anything else, you just got to get in the habit of saving, right? Just remember, numbers wise, if you want to save $500 a month for your child, that's $6,000 a year, depending on how old your child is, right? If you just did straight $6,000 a year, right? 3-4 years, you're in the 20,000s, right? Without interest, right? Depending on how old your child is, you could get to a good place. But $500 a month just for your child means you're in a good place financially also, because you should be taking care of yourself, putting away more than you're putting away for your child, for you, right? So that's really what it comes down to. And again, we have to figure that out per family.
Good information. All right, Chris, thank you for that. All right, so where do you start when you want to do better with finances?
Mindset, right? Like not to sound like, trite or repetitive about this thing, but like, that's just it's where it starts. Like, it's your mindset and it's education. You have to feed your mind new things that you haven't been taught. I gave that recommendation of those 3 books, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, Money Master the Game, and The Richest Man in Babylon. You have to start getting into your mindset different, thoughts about money, the way you speak about money, right? Like all that stuff that I said in the beginning, like that's actually where it starts, because through your mind, you'll change your habits. And that's ultimately what we're trying to get to when we're changing our money, right? Through your mind, you'll change your habits. And we're trying to get to a place of changing your money habits. We're trying to get you to a place of paying yourself first. If you're talking about starting out, we need to get you to do some things to make sure that you have more coming in than going out. We got to make sure you're saving money and paying yourself first. But these are habits that we grow over time. The issue is because no one addresses these habits, we can go 20, 30, 40 years doing the same bad habits until we wake up and we're like, I need to do something different. Like, this isn't working for me. And so then it takes a process to unlearn and relearn new habits. So that's where we start. Starts in the mind. Read some books. Get educated on financial, financial education. Again, I'm a resource. I do this for free. I educate people complimentary. So you can feel free to hit me up, and I'll walk you down that path. But it's good. It's going to be a mindset exercise.
All right, thank you, Chris. And guys, I've posted Chris's contact information. And if you are in the Zoom and you are not a CDPD member, you will receive his contact information. I think tomorrow it'll be emailed to you automatically. Okay, so how much does it cost, or should it cost, to work with a financial planning professional?
For me, it's free, right? It's because it's what I target, right? Like I specifically target. If you want to go sit down with a planner, a full planner advisor, you may pay, it depends. There's fee-based ones, and there's ones that kind of take a commission off of like products that they sell you, like assets under management. Some people you'll just pay a fee for right away. Some people just charge you to put a plan in place. And that could be in those range, right? Depending on the company you choose to go with. I've seen people put together financial plans for people for $1,000. Some people put it together for $5,000. Some people that are fee-based, just, they might charge you a monthly. There's some, coaches that are out there, financial coaches, that you just pay like a monthly subscription type of thing, $60 a month. You get access to their courses and a one-on-one session with them. So the financial services industry is just like every other industry. It's being disrupted in many different areas because the traditional advisor is phasing out because we need more things. I would say just find someone you trust, that you like, and that you actually know that they know their stuff, right? That's really what you want to get down to, because you're going to someone, a financial professional, to help educate you, not as some passive, like, do this with my money and I don't want to think about it. That's not what you want to get to, right? You want to get to a place where someone's teaching you and educating you, like, these are your options. This might be best for you, but this is another option. You want to go through the process so you are learning about money as you go, and then just have someone there that you trust and respect and that knows their stuff.
I like this. Things I get from that is that this is an iterative process. So I should be working with my financial planner and not just saying, okay, this is the plan, you go ahead and you do your thing, and I just look at my statements every quarter. Like, I really should be working with that person. We're a team working on, okay. All right, guys, that's good information. Because I think a lot of people kind of just deferred to their finance person and just let them do what they do, and that was that. So, okay, that's good guideline for us. All right, guys.
Yep. And it's great for, and just last point, it's great for when you have a little bit of money, but then you look at guys like Tim Duncan in the NBA that, like, his financial guy took advantage of him. And there's plenty of these stories that their financial advisor, their tax person, their accountant, they take advantage of people that are bringing in larger sums of money because they don't have financial education themselves. So what I try to do is say, let's get the education, work with your person so you understand the process. Like, I'm at a place, right? Of course, I understand about taxes, but I have a CPA. Like, I don't need to, like, do my taxes, but I have an understanding enough to understand, okay, hey, we're filling out a Schedule C this year, but next year we might do something different. Hey, understand these were some of my deductions, right? I can speak to him, freely because I understand it. I want us to be knowledgeable. This is why I don't always recommend you automating your savings. Some people might just be like, out of sight, out of mind, but you have no control over your money. You have no education on it. You can't, it's not tangible to you. That's where I want everyone to get to. You got to have a high level of financial literacy that we're all lacking, like all of us across the board, because again, no one teaches us. So that's what I would prefer for all of you, right? Just get the education, work with someone, do those things, and then take control of your money. Take control of it.
Yeah. I'll just share this. Thank you for that, Chris. So a long time ago, Oprah Winfrey said, I believe it was when she said it twice. She said it that I saw once to Toni Braxton, who went bankrupt, and once to TLC, who went bankrupt. So you know how long this is ago, that she still reviewed all of her checks, Oprah Winfrey. Now, I'm a finance person, like, not like you. I'm talking about budget, accounting, CFO type of finance. And I know there are ways you can do that. So I'm sure she's not looking at every $5 check, but I'm sure she has a threshold amount of what she's looking at. But I always say that to people, that if someone like Oprah Winfrey is still monitoring her money, because in both of those instances, both Toni Braxton and TLC had both said they didn't know where the money was going. So they didn't really. And I think she said it also recently to one of the Destiny Child girls, Kelly, I think Kelly Rowland, right? Mm-hmm. So that, and she's like, I've said this multiple times, you need to see what's coming in and what's going out. So if Oprah Winfrey can do it, there's no reason why if you make $75,000 a year, you can't do it, right?
1,000% correct. And more importantly, that's how you get to Oprah Winfrey level. You got to remember that, like, it's the habits that we create that get us to where we want to be. She didn't just adapt that habit like when she made billions. Like, that wasn't her thing. Like, she's been doing that forever. It becomes her mindset. It becomes her habit. That's what gets us there, right? Like, we always want to put the cart before the horse. Like, you got to change this and put these habits in place now, so that when it does come in, the habits are in place. Yeah, we are our habits, right? If you have bad habits at $50,000, you're gonna have bad habits at $500,000. You can't keep it; it'll go away. So that's why you gotta attack the habits. Yes, you gotta pay attention to your money. You just gotta again learn money, learn it.
I love it. So this is my question for the group. Okay, so I have the group, and I want people to begin to build wealth, but this is not a finance group, right? What kind of things should I be posting in the group? Maybe you'll post some stuff for us from time to time, Chris. But I want to keep this at the forefront, right? I want us all to understand, like, on the 6 areas that you said that you had up there. So ours really is in that income, generate income, whether it is through self-employment or raises or new jobs, right? But I also want to be mindful that within this group, we can also begin to have discussions of some of those other areas. So I guess I'm asking you, maybe you'll post some stuff for us, or direct me to.
I'll give you a few things. I'll give you a few things, and I'll make sure that you have something, some material that you can post. That can start some conversations. I'll just, right, and we can talk offline about it. But honestly, like, a lot of times in groups, it becomes this like herd like mentality of like, I don't want to ask a stupid question because I'll get a bunch of those type of answers, and or I'm just not comfortable to kind of talk about this. This is the other thing I've had to get through, is money has been a stigma in our society for so long. Again, back to those trauma things, right? The things that we choose not to talk about in our society. We have to get to a place where it becomes open enough that you can be like, hey, like, what do you got going for savings? And someone's not completely turned off and like, I'm not telling you that, right? We're not even at a place to talk about our incomes for most people. It's like, what do you make? Well, it's around this, right? Like, we're so afraid of like talking about money that's what makes things like keeping it in a chat very like simple, because it's not, right? Like, it's hard to do that. I'm in a bunch of different groups, right? Like, people don't respond to it all the time, or they respond to it with craziness because they think they're an expert, and then everyone thinks they're an expert on it, and they're like, don't do that, do this, and then the person that asked the question is super confused anyway because they got
I hear you. But we have a good group. I mean, not so bad about any other groups, but we have a really good group in terms of the interaction. And I think we could have some of these conversations, but you know what I'm going to invest in, Chris? I don't know if you've ever seen it. And I see your two comments there, Latricia. I'm going to address them shortly. Dr. Modesti came here and she used something called Menti.com. And what it allowed people to do was anonymously ask questions, right? So as she was presenting, she could, you could put in the code and you could anonymously. And I think I'm gonna look for. I saw something similar in one of my other groups and see if that would help people have some discussion around money, because it is it's kind of stigma. You're not supposed to talk about it. It's taboo. I have always told people what I made. Always told my salary. Everybody thought it was crazy.
Yeah, me too.
Always told people at work my salary. And it is when when everyone knows the salary, things like, oh, my coworker makes more than me, we're doing the same work. Like any business, any organization you work for, if they don't want to share salaries, there's a problem, right? So I've always shared that kind of information, and people thought I was crazy. But yeah, so
I hear you.
yes. All right. So Latricia says, yeah, we could have a book club with discussion, and we could read the books, Latricia. So Chris did drop 3 books. The Richest Man in Babylon, Money Mastered the Game. That one is by Tony Robbins. Rich Dad Poor Dad by, what's his first name? Kiyosaki's first name? Robert Kiyosaki. And what, The Richest Man in Babylon, what's his name?
Oh gosh.
Okay, that's all right. It's all right. I'll post them
that
up.
always gets away from me.
I'll post links to the books, Latricia. And I posted links to Chris's IG and his LinkedIn. Chris, do you have a YouTube?
I do. It's entrepreneurial development, but it's one of those things where you got to like search for it, right?
All right, so
it doesn't
send me a
pop up
link because they're asking for it, okay?
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, send me a link because they're asking for it. And if you have a blog, send me everything. Because I posted up your IG and your LinkedIn. I'll post that up. Okay. Oh, so Latricia says she's reading The Richest Man in Babylon now. Okay. Thank you, Tia. Yes, that's right. Our group is great. What else? Okay. So there are more questions in Zoom. Let me get back to Zoom. Sorry. Do you work with a certain net worth client or have a threshold?
The answer to that is no, Felicia. Like I span the gambit, right? Like I said, work with clients that unemployed, right? Making 20 grand a year technically, or 25 grand a year. And then like I said, a couple of my last couple clients are making 250, 270 grand a year household income. So anything in between, I can even go above that. But again, I know my business and I know who I target. I can help the super high net worth, but I help everyone that is what I call underserved by the traditional financial industry. Right? The traditional financial industry is only serving a small group of people because they're the ones with the money, and that's what the industry was built on. I'm making it so that our industry can be built on education and knowledge and information so that you have it, because that stuff's free and you shouldn't have to pay for it. You just have to trust the source that it's coming from. And then on the back end, if you need annuities, insurances, debt management programs, right? Those things, then we can put those things in place, but this becomes education. So great question.
I love it. All right, guys, drop your questions because I'm going to go ahead with mine. And we know Chris is coming back next week to talk about Entrepreneurship 101. What is it? So you want to be an entrepreneur? Is that what's
yep. So you want to be an entrepreneur? We're going to dive deeper into some of the entrepreneur stuff. Again, I know a lot of people, especially in this crew, right? Like that, are looking for that next thing or trying to raise their income or trying to even transition out of the 9-to-5 life. Well, I did it successfully, right? Like I used to be a restaurant manager. I was the AGM for the Cheesecake Factory. That's actually my degrees. I have an associate's in culinary arts, bachelor's food service management. So I was a cook, culinary guy, chef. And then I realized that industry wasn't going to get me and my family to where we needed to be. It was that simple. I just realized like, this isn't going to do it regardless of my degrees and all that stuff. I'm not staying down this path. I saw my wife, her and her brother ran a distribution company. So she was already an entrepreneur. I was the one that was employee minded that had to transition into being an entrepreneur. But it worked out. Haven't had a job for seven years and love every minute of being an entrepreneur. I'll talk about it on Wednesday. So you guys definitely want to make sure you're there because similar to this conversation, a lot of it is how we're thinking about it, right? A lot of it is our mindset. So
I will, guys, if you are in the Zoom, I will send you, I see who's there. I'll send you the link and everything for next week's, but you can always join this group, right? All right. You can always join our group and get everything. And then everyone, this is going to be on our YouTube channel. I'll try to upload it later this evening. If you found value in this presentation, share it. Share it on your page. Send someone the link because it is public, all right? Okay, so, oh, and then Chris, yeah, I did check your profile. You went to an excellent school.
For college, Johnson Wales?
Yeah, I know a lot of chefs. Yeah,
See?
you went to an excellent program.
Yeah. Again, I mean, that's what I thought I wanted to do, right? It's crazy. That's the other side. It's crazy, and I'll talk about this next week. It's crazy that we're expected to know what we want to do for our life when we're 17.
Yeah.
Right. It's just a crazy thought. So I was like, I like cooking. I know how to cook, and went to culinary school and made it happen. And then I got in the industry and worked in the industry. And
it was a whole lot.
This is not like long nights, holidays, weekends. Right? You're overworked, underpaid. Like people got like, you know, bad vices, right? There's all types of stuff that you're privy to. Like, what did I get? What did I sign up for? What did I go to college for? But they were a good school though, right? Unfortunately, my campus shut down. The North Miami campus, they just shut down through COVID. The Providence campus, which is the main one in Rhode Island, and then I think Denver campus might still be open as well. So.
I have a question here before I start. So from Tia, she says, you showed an example in your slide of 12% interest. Can you suggest vehicles that have historically yielded that interest rate yearly for us? Oh, 12%?
Yeah, there's not going to be many, just to be honest, right? Yeah. There's not going to be many. There is a strategy, like it's getting popular on the investing side, like index funds that you've heard of, right? Like index funds kind of take the broadness of the market, so you're not going to get the same fluctuations as you would in a stock. But there's also something called an index strategy that is attached to certain policies, certain annuities, certain insurance policies. And what that is able to do is it allows you to mitigate that risk, because it gives you a floor with downside protection, and then they allow you to make most of the gains of the market. So if there were a vehicle that could get you close to that, you would probably want to start looking at index strategies attached to insurance type vehicles. Right? There's nothing historically, right, outside of you having a ton of money and going into a hedge fund, right? But most hedge funds, right, you got to have, $5 million net worth or whatever to get in. So you're not going to find it. But the key is, and this is something when we really go down this path with money, something to understand is mathematically, it's actually more important to not lose money than it is to gain money. Right? So that's something that's just mathematically we got to learn, and so we don't risk our money and we just get gains. We focus on just getting gains, trying to mitigate that risk. So again, not many vehicles out there that do it, but everyone's financial picture is a little bit different. We can start to strategize some things if you really needed to go down that path.
All right, Tia says index strategies. Thanks. Should we search it? Also, Tia, why don't you take Chris up on his offer and tap him, right? Yeah. And everyone else tap into Chris. He's available. And I've already invited Chris to come back with his wife so that they can, show us what they do. So we're looking forward to that as well, though that's not scheduled yet. All right, I'm going with my questions, guys. And I told Chris I wouldn't, but I'm gonna go ahead and not ask my first question because Chris has told me already he's thinking about that question. He does not believe he's been marginalized, and that's great because everyone has not experienced marginalization. So we're
going to clarify that, right? It's not that I don't feel like I've never, it's just the way, a lot of what we just talked about is mindset. Where my mind focuses, it's just really tough to pull from those experiences, right? That's the toughest thing for me. Like even, I'm such a forward, I can't remember certain things that were negative experiences to me, or like, because the way my brain works now is like life works for us, not right. Like things don't just happen to us. There's no situation that's like, oh, that happened to me. Like, no, everything happens for us. So I'm always just thinking forward. So it's tough to pull from experiences. I'm sure I have been, but it's just tough to pull from it. So that's why I wanted you to hold off.
All right, we'll see if Chris has one next week, but if not, that's cool. All right, so my next question is if you can If you can go back in time and tap your younger self on the shoulder and tell a younger Chris, give him some advice related to money, what would you tell him?
Save earlier, right? Save earlier. The reason we can get to a place to kind of teach this type of stuff and really help people through it is because we blew a lot of money in our lives, right? Like like I said, we came in with bad habits, and when you have more money coming in, you need to do crazy things with it, right? So if I could tap myself on the shoulder, I'd be like, listen, start putting this money away now. Start saving it, right? I just told you, right? I came from the restaurant world. Outside of being back of the house for that little bit, I jumped front of the house because I was pretty personable. So I started talking. So I was server, bartender. I was making, and I was working in Miami Beach at that time, make a ton of money, just cash, just tons of money. Where did it all go? I was 21, 22, right? 19. Where did it all go? I have no idea. Actually, I do. It went to clubs and alcohol and stupid things, right? Like that's just what it goes to. Exactly. So if I could tap myself, like you always shoot yourself about the amount of money you could have saved. If you really just understood more about money. So that's what I would say.
All right. All right. And let me see. I don't have any other questions. Hey, June, thank you for joining. My final question, I like my final questions to be the final question. So guys, don't drop anything else. This is my final question. So if we only had one takeaway today about money matters, a money mindset, what would that be?
That you have to change your mindset around money. That is it. Don't focus on the things that are not in your control. Let's focus on this, because this is what changes everything. If you change your thinking, you change your life. If you change the way you think about money, you change your financial life. Like that is what will help you. That's it, right? Like that's where you got to start. People try to, it's like trauma, right? Like we try to do all the surface things, but it's really the deep stuff inside that we're not paying attention to.
Yes.
That is big. Yeah. So it starts up here, and paying attention and being aware of what we're saying to ourselves, changing the stories we tell ourselves about money, how we talk about money, and how we think about money. That has got to be your big takeaway if you want to get better, right?
Yeah. All right. Thank you, Chris. There are some great comments in the chat, and you are in our group, so you can see those comments. Again, thank you. And, I appreciate you. I'm looking forward to next week, as I am a budding entrepreneur.
There you go.
And guys, again, this will be posted on our YouTube channel. If you're not a member of our group, consider joining. And if you found value in this evening's presentation, please share it on your page or with your network. Again, thank you, Chris. Looking forward to hosting you next week. Have a good evening.
Pleasure's mine. Thanks for having me.
All right, then. Bye-bye.